Hello, everyone. This is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Today, we are discussing the strategic discipline required to scale a startup without exhausting your runway. In 2026, the biggest risk for early stage companies isn't a lack of effort, it's investing heavily in growth before the foundation is ready. Joining us today is Cyril Kowaliski, founder of Sugarcube Strategy. Cyril is a senior marketing leader who has worked with global giants like Intel and Asus, as well as over a dozen startups. As a fractional head of marketing, he helps founder led businesses under $10 million move from fragmented ideas to coordinated data driven results. So, before further ado, let's welcome this special guest. Cyril, welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, Cyril, you've seen many startups burn through their cash, by jumping straight to scaling before they've handled the foundational work. So let's start the conversation by understanding what is the right sequence that startups should follow before investing in actual marketing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think obviously every founder should invest in marketing. The question is how much and when.
Mm-hmm.
And as you pointed out, a lot of founders do too much too soon. So the sequence that I like to advocate for is four steps. One is create your strategy, understand who you're for, what are you saying, make sure it's going to resonate, research your competitors, make sure you understand how you're positioned in the market and really what makes you different. That's an issue that I see often. It's unclear differentiation.
Yeah.
And understand also what your launch sequence is going to look like, how you're going to find your feet in the market. So that's step number one. Step number two is spend some time validating product market fit. And we'll get a little bit more into that later in the podcast. But that really looks like getting clear signals from the markets that your offer resonates, that your offer lands, and that people are willing to adopt your solution. And at the strategy and fit validation stages, your marketing spend should be quite low, and you should expect low ROI because what you're doing here is really paying for learning. You're not in scaling mode yet. Once you've done those two steps, and once you have signals from the market that you have fit, then that's when you start ramping awareness. You start figuring out, there's a mix of organic and paid tactics. And then afterwards, you can get into scaling mode. And part of that involves, having the right team in place. So it's,
Right.
And if you skip any of these steps, chances are that you're going to burn runway and you might have to double back afterwards.
No, loved what you said about specifically moving through a clear sequence of validation, right? Before scaling. I think if you're doing that right, that is the only way to ensure your marketing budget actually delivers a return, right? So, love knowing that. Thank you so much for that, Cyril. Now, let's explore how founders can validate true product market fit, as you clearly mentioned. So, firstly, from a layman's perspective, for all the new people who might have joined us, what is product market fit? And how can founders confirm true PFF, using your framework that you offer?
Product market fit just means that what you're selling has a clear buyer and there's
Right.
enough demand in the market
Mm-hmm.
for what you offer, whether it's a product or a service. Usually it looks like being differentiated enough
Mm-hmm.
and offering enough value that people are willing to pay for it and choose you over alternatives.
Right.
So the way to validate that, and there are many different signals that you can listen for, but I like to lump them into three buckets. Bucket number one is, are people willing to pay? And the way to listen for that is to see whether early adopters are buying at or near your target price. You can, test price elasticity here. Are conversions holding beyond your personal network? It's easy to convert people who are close to you or who know you. People who are a little bit more further removed, that might be more challenging. Do your unit economics look sustainable, especially if you're a product company? So that's the pay bucket. Then there's the stay bucket. So once you get people in through the door, do they stay? Are they going to keep using your solution? If you're a service business or if you're like a SaaS business, or if you're in e-commerce, for example, if you're a product business, are they going to repurchase? Are they going to come back?
Yeah.
And so you listen here for low churn, low drop off, high satisfaction. It's good to do net promoter score tests or the very disappointed test. Ask people, would they be genuinely disappointed if your offering disappeared?
Yeah.
And then bucket number 3 is talk. If people are happy with your offer, they will start to talk about it. They will spread the
Of
word.
course.
And that is one that's often overlooked is words spreading beyond your own reach and your
Right.
own marketing that you're doing. And I saw this with a company that I worked with where we were doing an okay job of driving sales, but there was no word of mouth. There was no amplification. So we had to basically just do all of the work to get people
Yeah.
in through the door. We did an NPS survey and we realized, oh, actually early adopters were a little bit unhappy with the product. The NPS score was bad. And so we immediately pivoted to working on the product and then communicating the improvements to the product to people so that they would start to shift their opinion and hopefully start to spread the word.
Well, definitely. I loved what you said about word of mouth because there's nothing like organic marketing, right? A person who has been there, gone through that experience, can pull in a lot more customers than your cold call or, cold emails will eventually. And definitely cutting through the noise with, those 3 simple metrics that you mentioned, they definitely prevent a company from scaling a product that the market isn't ready to support. So thank you so much for educating our listeners on that as well. Now, Cyril, when we talk about SMBs specifically, one thing that they struggle with is budgets, right? They usually don't have a lot of money to spend, and they are counting every penny, every dollar that is going out of their business account. So, from that perspective, let's now discuss fractional leadership, right? Specifically for early stage growth startups. So, what does a fractional marketing leader do, and why is it a better option for early stage startups? So I'd love for you to cover on all the touch points there.
Yeah, absolutely. Ideally, what a fractional head of marketing should do is exactly the same things that an in-house full-time
Yeah.
head of marketing would do. The only difference is they're fractional, so you only get part of their time. They're not in the office all day. But if you hire the right person, they're going to be just as responsive and just as present. The challenge with early stage companies is hiring the right senior person takes a long time unless you have an amazing network, because you have to find the right person. You have to convince them to come on.
Yeah.
It's a whole cycle. You have to, and a lot of these people, that you might have in your network or that you might interview for, they might have great experience in mature companies, but they're not necessarily going to have experience in an early stage startup where the playbook is very, very different, and the set of assumptions is very, very different. And if you don't, if you wait too long, the challenge is, you're going to be doing your own marketing as the founder. Maybe you hire a junior person, but you're not going to be equipped for success. So fractional gives you that senior judgment with a short hiring cycle. You only pay for what you need. You don't need a big comp package. You don't need equity.
Right.
You get someone who's done this across multiple companies, who understands early stage, who's got the scar tissue, the experience from those experiences. And then they're going to be able to hit the ground running, and you can combine them with in-house people as well. So a model that works really well is a blended model where you have a fractional head of marketing and then a couple of juniors who are in-house, who are full-time, who are actually doing a lot of the executional work.
That was a very simple and a very impactful definition of, you just painted a very clear picture, I think, in all the founders' minds, that what would a fractional, marketing leader look like working for them. And definitely, I'd say it's a very smart investment that you're doing for a company, right? You're getting the work, you're getting the time, you're getting the availability, you're getting the results being at the budget, right? So I think it's the best thing that early stage founders can do. On that note, before we go any further into the conversation, here's a special note for all the listeners, especially for all the founders watching. In 2026, you don't need a full time executive salary on your cap table to get the executive level results. Scaling is about team design and not just headcount. If you are under 10 million in revenue, don't rush into 6 month hiring search that might end in a misfit. Use fractional leadership to bridge that gap. Get the strategy right first, validate your fit, and then build a lean execution team. Your runway is your lifeblood. Spend it on strategy and validation and not just a fancy title. Coming back to you, Cyril, um, utilizing a fractional leader allows a startup to access high level expertise and specialist teams without the long term risk of a permanent full time hire. So that's amazing. I'd love for you to now focus a little on how exactly to transition into scalable growth. You have the resources, you have the people with you. How exactly do you suggest that founders know when they are ready to scale their marketing, at which particular point in time?
Yeah, and that really goes back to that product market fit validation framework. So,
Yeah.
figure out, are people willing to pay? Are people
Hmm.
willing to stay? And then are they willing to talk and to
Yeah.
spread the word? If you have strong evidence that the answer is yes in each of those buckets,
Hmm.
then that's a really good signal that you're now able to switch from that low ROI, low spend learning mode
Yeah.
into awareness building and growth and scaling. Now, there is also that's those are the requirements from outside. The
Hmm.
requirements from inside are also, operationally, do you have the right team in place? Do you have the right systems in place?
Yeah.
If you as a founder are very in the weeds on every decision, every campaign, that is not going to be scalable. That's not going to be sustainable as you get into scaling mode, as you get into growth mode. So you need to make sure that you have the right team in place, and having a fractional with some in-house people is a good framework. Some founders choose to take a little bit longer and get that fully in-house team with a
Yeah.
an in-house head of marketing as well. But so part of it is having the right team, and then part of it is also, as the founder, doing the very, very uncomfortable thing of taking a step back, letting the
Yeah.
leader take ownership of the growth objectives and the revenue objectives, and letting them run marketing so that you as a founder are able to, you know, focus your energy on running the business and focus your energy on the business strategy. And probably you're talking a lot with investors as well, and let the marketers
Yeah.
market. So scaling should look like turning up the volume on
Yeah.
something that's already working.
Hmm.
It's not, like rolling the dice on
Right.
something new.
Wow. I loved what you said about, as a founder, usually you're juggling between all the hats, trying to do everything yourself, right? And finally, when you get the person, who can take care of the tasks, there's this intrinsic trust factor that needs to be there for them to get the results delivered. And waiting for the right signals, before ramping up awareness, it ensures that your brand enters the market with a proven scalable message. I'm loving this conversation, Cyril, and I'd love for you to be back maybe for an in studio podcast that we do next. But for now, before we let you go, if there's one piece of final advice that you have for all the founders who are feeling a little overwhelmed, a little pressured to scale their early startups, what if you could whisper one thing into their ear? What would you say and why?
I would say every founder feels that pressure,
Yeah.
whether it's from your investors or just from yourself or just from seeing. I like what you said about your runway is your
Yeah.
lifeblood.
Hmm.
And this is almost counterintuitive coming from a marketer, but what I would say is spend as little as possible on your marketing until you have those signals that you have product market fit and your offer is aligned on the market. I'm not saying spend zero. You still need a strategy. You still need a sense of what to do and how to test
Yeah.
for product market fit. But be very, very careful with your marketing spend until you're sure that you're ready.
A great reminder indeed that a careful, progressive approach is often the fastest way to reach a successful launch. It was such a pleasure having you on the show, Cyril. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that was Cyril Kowaliski from Sugarcube Strategy, a masterclass on how to use fractional marketing leadership to validate your fit and protect your runway while building for scale. To all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and visit CanadianSME.ca for more such resources. And lastly, a very special thank you to our partners, UPS and ADP, our HR partner, for their ongoing commitment to empowering SMBs across Canada. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.